Hi, my name is Ali Ariano, and I will be presenting an explanation of the five canons of rhetoric in a nonprofit organization. The context of the setting for me right now would be in a nonprofit organization to perhaps coworkers or to a supervisor, and just have that ability to apply what I've researched straight into the career that I have chosen. And in this presentation, we'll see my introduction, then we'll kind of see my methodology and how I got to my research, how the things I viewed, and then from there, we'll discuss some of the research itself and then some conclusions. I would like to start with some contextual background in order to make sense of Aristotle and his five canons. The Romans and also the Greeks were interested in argument and rhetoric, as you may already know. The five canons of rhetoric appear in Cicero's first century Latin text. This text was highly influential. I'm sure you've heard of it for many centuries, and still can be seen to be used for persuasion in the 21st century. The five canons of rhetoric are invention, which is finding ways to persuade; arrangement, which is putting together the structure of a coherent argument; style, which is presenting the argument to stir the emotions; memory, which is speaking without having to prepare or memorize the speech; and delivery, which is making an effective use of voice, gesture, and other nonverbals. In the first decade of the first 21st century, we've seen an increase of activity in and around the U.S. nonprofit sector. I'm sure you all are familiar with nonprofits, Boy Scouts of America, Goodwill. Those are some well-known ones. There was high-profile social entrepreneurs at that time. And with the emergence of those big and better philanthropists, there's an increase in funding to this sector that many people took note of. And with that note of nonprofits, I think that it was important to study a theory or a structure such as Aristotle in his five canons in order to better the nonprofit sector. Okay, so now we're going to move into methodology. According to Cresswell, the mixed methods approach came about in the mid to late 1980s due to the inclination of two traditional approaches and them containing their biases. Using qualitative and quantitative data in a study, the researcher nulls, takes away the weakness. So Cresswell states, the core assumption of this form of inquiry is the combination of qualitative and quantitative approaches that provide a more complete understanding of a research problem that either approach alone. So next, using mixed media approach, mixed approach to collecting the data, I'll do kind of a broad overview of what I did review. I did do a broad overview of rhetoric in the background, in the context, in the time that rhetoric was created. And then I also did a review of the rhetoric of Operation Rescue, which is definitely more closer to the time that we're in now. It's a little bit they're both relevant, but more perhaps this could be applied to immediately. So rhetoric of Operation Rescue is a comprehensive examination of the rhetoric of Operation Rescue, a pro-life social protest group. It was prominent in 1988 and 1992. During this time, the group orchestrated blockades of clinics where abortions were performed. Steiner examines how the group sought to persuade people, primarily conservative, evangelical, fundamentalist Christians, to join their ranks. So they sought to use their form of social protest to achieve their public policy goals. In doing so, Slater explains both the group's initial success, beginning with the 1988 siege of Atlanta protests, and its ultimate failure. So that's a little background there for Operation Rescue, which we'll get in more later. The rhetoric was a crucial part of liberal education from the days of Aristotle to the 20th century. A man of the day was expected to write and speak efficiently and persuasively if he were to be considered well educated. Students devoted several years to studying how to write and speak. However, in the early part of the 21st century, a change of education happened. Degrees that prepared students for specific callings degrees happen, which is what we know as liberal education. And so, once again, rhetoric is defined as speaking and writing effectively. For us in the modern world, we see rhetoric as a manipulation of truth or associated with things that are said, what is said, how to say it, according to Brett. But since ancient times to now, people believe that the art of rhetoric was a noble pursuit and considered an important element of a well-rounded individual. And we would say the same when we meet someone who is eloquent, when we meet someone who is a phenomenal writer. We would say that they are well-rounded as an individual. And so in rhetoric, there are three things that were examined: pathos, logos, and we see those things to be what shape rhetoric. Pathos is the appeal to emotion that we have seen often, and then logos is the appeal to reason, and then so we see it there. And so pathos and logos and the third are all very important to rhetoric, and we don't want to dismiss those things when we want to take a look at those things. Even now, we see that those that study it are we still find those things in freshman speech class. We still find those things in anywhere we study communication. And so, in the art of rhetoric, Aristotle states that appealing to reason means engaging the word itself and persuading. This was accomplished using deductive reasoning through inferences. This is usually in the form of formal syllogisms, and which we know is the speaker would start with two premises and end with a conclusion that naturally follow the premises. Now, to hit the rhetoric of operation. This is a comprehensive examination of the rhetoric of Operation Rescue, which is a pro-life social group that was prominent 1988 to 1992. They orchestrated blockades of clinics where abortions were performed. We've hit that. And in this, they state, shows the group's appeal and call to the evictions of conservative Christians. And this is how they shaped it. A man should know how to debate and to maintain public dialogue and political activism was their way of speaking to the crowd. And there were a number of ways of persuading that crowd, but the fundamental way was to practice it in an authentic manner and to deliver it. And so in many of their speeches, you will see, according to Steiner, that the way that they were able to persuade the most was the fact that they would use it in an authentic manner. A man should know how to discuss and debate with vigor, intelligence, and civility. Sadly, many men today and women have not learned this essential skill. And so for us, we need a firm understanding of rhetoric, and it will help a person make the decisions and to speak clearly about things. And so this is key to us. Thank you for listening.